Welcome to the session number 3. My name is Choe, and I am an associate professor at the College of Information Studies and a member of the HCIL. Sydney Paola is here with us, and she is our high school doctoral student and also a volunteer for this session. In this session, we have 5 presenters who will be sharing their interesting work on social media, visual analytics, and health. I have some housekeeping stuff before we begin. Live captioning is available for this session. Card service can be enabled by selecting the closed captioning feature located on the bottom bar within the Zoom webinar to enable live caption within the Zoom. And each speaker will present for about 10 minutes, followed by 4-minute Q&A. And during the presentation or right after the presentation, feel free to type your questions on Zoom chat window. And in addition to using the Zoom chat, please join our Discord channel to ask questions and engage with our speakers and attendees. Sydney, if you can you drop the link to our Discord channel? That would be great. We will be monitoring questions on both channels, so please use them as you wish. All right, so our first talk is understanding Instagram users' self-presentation between Rinsta and Finsta. The speaker is Xiaoyun Huang, and she is our doctoral student at the Information School. So Xiaoyun, take it away.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. I am Xiaoyun, and I'm a PhD student at iSchool. Today, I'm presenting the work collaborated with Dr. Vitak, Understanding Instagram User Self-Presentation Between Finsta and Rinsta. So before we start, what is Finsta and Rinsta? So Finsta is usually one's fake, less official and more private Instagram account, while Rinsta is usually one's real, more official and more public Instagram account. And users might post different things on the 2 accounts. For example, Jennie from Blackpink, a popular K-pop group band, has both Rinsta and Finsta, and she shares casual pictures and the behind the scenes of pictures of her performance on Finsta, while on Rinsta, she shares more official content like magazine covers and campaigns. So this work is motivated by the fact that maintaining multiple accounts on Instagram and many other social media platforms becomes increasingly popular. When Instagram users click their handles, they will be prompted to try a new account to explore their interest or to interact with a group of friends. So there is a trend, especially among young adults and adolescents, to maintain a Finsta in addition to their Rinsta for creative self-presentation. And in this study, I am especially interested in people's self-presentation on these 2 accounts because self-presentation about how people mobilize their activity to convey an impression to others is one of the most important motivations for people to use social media. And specifically, the first research question we explore is how does Instagram user self-presentation differ between Finsta posts and Rinsta posts? So in the process of self-presentation, the performer makes disclosures with the intent of shaping how the audiences sees them, and then takes feedback from their audiences to either adjust or to reinforce certain aspects of their performance. So it is also important to understand how Instagram users receive feedback from their audiences on these 2 accounts. So our second research question is, how do Instagram users perceive responses to Finsta posts and Rinsta posts differently? We also explore whether emotions expressed in the post and the quantity of responses to the post mediates the effect of account type on the perception of post responses. So to understand these 2 research questions, we use surveys. So first, I requested a random sample of 8,000 undergrads from the Office of Registrar, University of Maryland, and I sent them email invitation to participate in this study. And in the invitation, we made it clear that eligible participants would be those who had one Finsta and one Rinsta, and we provided them the definition of Finsta and Rinsta in case eligible participants opted out just because they were not familiar with the term Finsta and Rinsta. And in this survey number 1, which is a screener survey, I asked participants rationales and motivations for use their Rinsta and Finsta. And I also requested to, I also asked them to share their Finsta handles and Rinsta handles with me. And then I sent following requests to their accounts with my own Instagram account. And for those who gave me access to both of their accounts and had at least one Finsta post and one Rinsta post within the last 6 months, I customized survey number 2 for them based on a random sample of their recent posts. And in this survey, participants answered a set of questions about their self-presentation and their perceptions of responses for each of these selected posts. So this is an example screenshot from survey number 2. Questions about a post were listed under the screenshot of the post to help participants recall when they posted. And we asked participants self-presentation from 3 perspectives: their intention, like whether it was important for them to present positively in the post, and also their picture editing, and also the characteristics of the post from 3 dimensions: express emotions, visual, and topic. And since part of the comments and the number of likes one received were also included in the screenshot, participants could recall the scenario when they interacted with their contacts under this post. So we asked participants how did they perceive the responses to their post from 4 dimensions: satisfaction, usefulness, supportiveness, and pleasantness. So in total, we have 128 participants who finished survey number 1 and generated 384 responses about their motivation and rationales for using Finsta and Rinsta. And we also have 98 of them finished survey number 2 and rated 499 of their posts. And we ran mixed effects models at the post level to understand the effect of account type on self-presentation and on response perceptions. And we also qualitatively code these open-ended questions, open-ended responses to supplement and extend our quantitative results. So we find that account type had a significant influence on all 3 aspects of self-presentation. Participants showed significantly lower self-presentation intention in their Finsta posts, and they were less likely to edit pictures of Finsta posts, with less than 20% of Finsta posts being edited, while about 60% of their Rinsta posts being edited. And among those posts that were edited, participants also reported significantly lower effort devoted into picture editing. And as for the characteristics of posts, we find that participants reported more negative emotions expressed in their Finsta posts than in their Rinsta posts. And consistent with the emotions expressed, we find that participants were more open about struggles and challenges in life on their Finsta, and they usually vent or complain on Finsta, while they never do that on their Rinsta. And consistent with their picture editing behaviors, they thought their Finsta posts were less visually appealing. And they were also less likely to post their self-portraits on Finsta, while they did that frequently on Rinsta. And among the posts that included their self-portraits, they thought they looked less attractive on Finsta than on Rinsta. And we also find account type had a significant influence on response perceptions. We find that participants reported lower satisfaction, usefulness, supportiveness, and pleasantness on Rinsta posts on responses to their Finsta post. And we also confirm the mediation effect of the two mediators. We find that responses to Finsta posts were regarded as less satisfying, useful, supportive, and pleasant compared with their Insta posts, partly because the emotions expressed in the post were more negative. And we also find that responses to Finsta posts were regarded as less satisfying, useful, and supportive, partly because Finsta posts received fewer comments than their Insta posts, which suggests that the quantity of responses also mattered. And our qualitative analysis echoed with our quantitative results. Participants thought that the norms about self-presentation were different on Finsta and on Insta. On Insta, it was a place for them to do the typical social media thing and show the best parts of their life, while Finsta was regarded as a less public account with less importance about public image. And consistent with our result about picture editing and visual aspects of posts, participants thought the quality of pictures decided where to post, and they spent a lot of effort shooting, selecting, and editing pictures posted to Finsta, while pictures that did not make that cut quality-wise went to Finsta. And one interesting result about the picture quality was that to ensure pictures posted to Insta were perfect, participants posted them to Finsta first to see how the pictures would look like and make a corresponding adjustment. And they would also ask their close friends' opinions about the quality of pictures on their Finsta before officially posting them to Insta. And participants presented their best image on Insta because they viewed their Insta as a public space viewed by a diverse and larger group of audience, including possible employers and acquaintances and also strangers. While they usually set their Finsta to private and closely manage who could follow their Finsta, so they were able to present their unfiltered and sometimes emotional aspect in front of a small group of close friends without worrying about being judged. So to sum up, in this study, we used a mixed method approach to understand the difference of self-presentation and perceived responses between Finsta post and Insta post. And we find that participants have complementary self-presentation on these two accounts, presenting their uplifting and more Instagrammable sides in front of a broad and larger audience on Insta, while they presented their emotional and imperfect side in front of close friends on Finsta. And they achieved their this complementary self-presentation on these two accounts with the same set of technical features provided by Instagram. And they did no or minimum picture editing on pictures posted to Finsta, while they spent a lot of effort editing pictures posted to Insta. And they mostly set their Finsta to private and closely manage who could access their Finsta, while they view their Insta as a public space that can be followed by anyone. And on these two accounts, they have different interaction dynamics with their audiences. On Insta, despite they spent more effort and are under higher pressure of self-presentation in the best light, they benefit from receiving more and better responses from this larger and more diverse audience. While on Finsta, they are under low self-presentation pressure. They can vent and be authentic and imperfect in front of their close friends who do not judge, but they could not receive that many responses from this small circle of audience. Okay, so that's all for today, and thank you.
Thank you, Xiaoyun, for a really interesting talk. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to study with the Instagram platform? Because there are some other social media platforms that support multiple accounts.
Yeah, that's basically just because of my personal interest. Like I spent some time on Instagram and I followed many accounts and I noticed this trend and I find it was very interesting to study it from the perspective of self-presentation. So I did it, yeah.
Mm. So we have one question from the Discord. What conclusions and extrapolations did you find?
So that's basically what I have talked in this slide. So we find that with the same set of technical features on Instagram, people with their different perceptions of norms about self-presentation on different accounts. So they utilize the same set of technical features to create different set of self-presentation and to interact with different audiences. And as a result, they received complementary responses from their different audiences, which is very interesting.
Mm. I think the name Finsta versus Rinsta is interesting because I think you draw the names from like real versus fake. But now that you've done this study, do you have any second thoughts about what's more real?
Yeah, so
The two.
yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, at first, the Finsta was mentioned as a contrast to Rinsta. So they talked about it as Finsta, but they did not actually mean it. Actually, we find that on Finsta, people might be more comfortable presenting their authentic self, but the name of Finsta and Rinsta remained because of a habit or something. And I do not think like it really means that Instagram users think what they present on their Finsta is more fake and what they present on their Rinsta is more real. Yeah.
Okay, thanks again. Due to the interest of time, we have to move on to the next speaker. But thank you so much. Next presentation will be given by Catherine Plaisant, and the title of the talk is Integrating Prior Knowledge in Mixed Initiative Social Network Clustering. So Catherine, whenever you're ready.
Are you seeing my screen? All good? Hello. I can't hear anything.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. All right, very good. So, hello everyone. So, when groups algorithm disagree. So this is the title of the Medium post that you could find on the website. But really, the paper that this summarized as a more esoteric title, but mainly it shows that I work with Alexis Pister, who is a PhD student in France, and a lot of colleagues also from Europe. So let me try to give you an idea of what the kind of problem we were trying to solve. So imagine a dinner party, and you need to carefully split 200 guests in groups. You hire 3 experts to help you, give them information about the guest, and they come back to you with 3 different groupings because they use different methods. You compare their ideas, tweak the groups because you know something that you didn't give all the experts. So you want to tweak the groups. And this is really similar to what happened when we ask algorithm to group and split people into groups. So we worked with colleagues who were social scientists, historians, and are analyzing large corpus of documents, well, relatively large corpus of documents because they do everything by hand. And they generate out of those documents social networks that they may present as a standard noding diagram, or in your case for the demo, a PowerVis diagram, which is very good for hypergraph, where each we can see the list of names, but each line here represent one document, and the dots represent who they are connecting. So you're 3 people. But practically for this talk, we're really going to focus on the names and how the algorithm try to group them automatically. So the standard typical way people deal with those automatic algorithms is that they are given a long list of bizarre names and they have to pick one algorithm. And usually they do it randomly because they don't really know the differences. And then they have to choose some parameters like how many groups do you want? And they are a little bit lost. So and then eventually they get some results. Like here we have 4 groups, more if you scroll down. And what we see people do is that they really want to see if what they already expected is really found, does a group match what they thought they were gonna, what they know is already true. So for example, they might say, oh, Marie Boucher and Jean-Marie Lesnay, they're really business associates. So it's good that they are in the same group, good. But here's Hubert and Marguerite, and they are in different groups, but really that's not good. They should be in the same group, so that's not good. So they might say, oh, but let's try another algorithm. But really, would there be a more systematic approach of doing this? So that's why we came up with the idea of PK clustering, PK being for prior knowledge. And we're going to see a video, but before, just to give you a quick tour, what we're going to see is that our user collects samples of prior knowledge. Here are 2 groups with 2 people in each group. And then we run all the algorithm at once with some variants for the different parameters. And then eventually we use the prior knowledge to rank the algorithm so that on the top are the one that match the one with the prior knowledge, and many of them actually do not match. So at the end, finally, the tool helps you compare the results, look for consensus. There is on the left here, this is example from a small group. We see all the algorithm, and it gives you an idea of the consensus. So clearly everybody, most algorithm agrees that those 2 people should be together. For this one, there is not as much consensus. Some algorithms, believe that they should be in another group. All right. So now, at the end, the user is allowed to make the final decision by rereading documents. They might say, okay, this guy is really in the blue group. I'm going to put him in the blue group. So now let's watch the video, which is narrated by Alexis Pister with a heavier French accent than me.
I first describe my prior knowledge by creating partial groups. I create a new group, add Marie Boucher and Jean-Masson Lisney, and call it Group A. I then put Hubert and Marguerite Antome in another group that we call Group B, in red. When I start the clustering, all the algorithms implemented by the system are run automatically. They are ranked by how well they match my prior knowledge. The top 6 algorithms have a perfect match. Both persons of the prior knowledge group A are found in the same cluster, and the 2 persons of the second prior knowledge group are together as well in another cluster. 2 algorithms have a partial match, and those algorithms did not match anything at all. The other people in each matched cluster are represented with these white circles and a number. The other clusters found by the algorithms are represented here on the right. I will start by looking at one of the most promising algorithms. I click on Louvain time. I see 3 groups, A, B, and others. The people from my prior knowledge are easy to spot. I can click on Others to see the other clusters in detail. but I would prefer to see how the top algorithms compare. The algorithms which gave a perfect match are selected by default. I select the 7 algorithms and click the Compare button. The 7 algorithms are listed on top, along with the prior knowledge. By default, the first algorithm is used to group the persons. I can see that in the group B, there is a lot of agreements. For many people, all 7 algorithms agree. For others, only 3. On the other hand, the consensus is less clear for the blue group. Only 2 algorithms think that Jacques Souchet is in this blue group. One algorithm even put him in the red group. At this point, I will go look at the network or read other sources to decide what is best, and come back to enter my decision. Using the consensus slider, I can select everyone with at least 4 diamonds the same color. They appear as circles in the consolidated knowledge column on the right. I then validate the suggestions by clicking or dragging on the circles. They turn into squares and will not change again. For the other persons, depending on what I learn from the graph or other documents, I can copy the suggestion of an algorithm. For example, I believe that these people are part of the red group, along with Jacques Souchet. Or I can leave them undecided. I am now done expanding and validating the prior knowledge clusters.
All right, so there is a whole other step, which is to validate the extra clusters, but we don't have time to show that today. And I'll move on to showing 2 examples. Like we use case studies to evaluate this kind of tool that takes a very long time to use, really, and learn and use. So this one is with an historian studying the role of businesswomen in the 17th century, and the example in Old French that you saw earlier. This is one of the networks that she studied. I mean, there would be more if you scroll down. What happened here is that she had studied this network in great lengths, and she had an hypothesis about what really, what groups or clusters really existed in this data, mainly represented here in what she entered in the prior knowledge. She wanted to check if it's really true that there is a group around Hubert Antome, another group about Marie Boucher, and another completely different group around Marie Boucher and Hubert Antome's company. Later on, they started a business together. So she ran the algorithm, she ran PK clustering, and she was actually very pleased in this case to find that, yes, 9 out of the algorithm we have, which is 11 plus 4 variants, so 59 out of 15 of the algorithm actually agreed that there were those 3 groups. You could see highlighted in here is the prior knowledge. So one group around Hubert Antome, one group around Marie Boucher, and one group, the business actually, and one group around Marie Boucher. And we could see like there is a pretty good agreement for, I mean, the consensus here is very useful. And that's what she used only to add, to validate who should be in this group. And she used the consensus slider a lot. She also left some, here we don't see it, maybe just up here we could see sometimes there is less agreement. So she really was the one picking, which group should it be in? She would be the one deciding. And then she also left some people undecided, feeling that there was not enough information. Well, the algorithm will automatically put somewhere. So another example was we tried to help this conference, the people in the committees select the program committee for the next conference. And we're supposed to make a well-balanced committee And it's easy to look at where people come from or what gender they are. But it's also, there is a goal of trying not to have all the entire program committee coming from one or two group of research groups, really, and to try to balance it among all the different research groups. So someone used PK clustering with the publication data to try to generate a good representation of the different research groups, what you could call lineage also for those researchers. So in that case, that person started by putting a prior knowledge of a few groups that she felt confident that were clearly, existed and were disjoint, and then run the PK clustering. In that case, there were 5 algorithms that matched that prior knowledge, and so she used them to compare. And again, she found pretty strong consensus here. And this is just a selection of the groups, that there will be more, but at least the program committee could be selected by picking people from those different groups. So I need to stop here, but hopefully you will see the whole paper for more information. Then clearly this is more complex than using automatic clustering, but it provides a great opportunity to correct the mistake, but infuse your own knowledge of the people and their lives in the results, go beyond what it might be in this case, the publication. Like you might know that they are, where they did their PhD, etc. Additional knowledge. So to summarize, I could say that grouping algorithm rarely agree. It's amazing how, there is a lot of variation. Visualization provides a wonderful way to compare and evaluate the results, and interactivity keeps users in control. All right, I will, don't hesitate to send me your question if we don't run out of time. There is my email, and here is a full paper for all the details. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. We actually ran out of time, but really quickly, like less than in 30 seconds, can you comment on Youngho's question, which is, does the interface assume that prior knowledge is the ground truth? Would there be any cases where people might revisit their prior knowledge, reflecting on the ensemble of the algorithm?
Absolutely. So, I mean, actually, it's a good point that what this does, actually, in some cases, we saw where there was no match. None of the algorithms matched the prior knowledge. So that tells you there is something wrong with my prior knowledge, probably based on the data that the algorithm used. So it's either a confirmation or an encouragement to go look again at what you think is happening in the data. Also, people often complain or might say, "Oh, you're giving too much control to the person who actually makes the final decision." So what we added is a way of having an audit trail in some kind that keep track of how all the decisions were made, by consensus or by override and so on. And this is really an important part of this. But we feel like as far as bias goes, the typical method of using one algorithm is extremely biased too. You just believe the first thing that you see. And there is no way of comparing with other alternative views. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's thank Catherine. And our next speaker is Naimul Hoque, and he will be talking about this paper, Interactively Assessing Interactional Diversity in Organizational Data. So Naimul, can you start sharing your screen? And you're muted.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the title of my talk today, actually, let me. Okay. Hello all. I'm here today to present our research on balancing the screen time of actors based on observable phenotypic traits in live telecast. I'll start with an outline of my talk today. I'll start by motivating our research problem. I'll then present a field study to introduce the design space. After that, I'll present the design and implementation of our interface, which is called Screen Balancer. I'll also present a user study that shows the effectiveness of our interface. Finally, I'll conclude my talk with outlining limitation and future work. Several studies have reported that women and people of color are underrepresented in visual media. According to a study in 2015, men appeared twice as much as women in Hollywood movies. The ratio was 3:1 when the movies were led by male actors. On the contrary, the ratio was 1:1 in the movies with female lead characters. The good news is the trend is changing, rather slowly though. According to a recent report, both female and minority participation in Hollywood has improved in recent years. Awareness among media producers and directors are also increasing. In this paper, we explore how technology can assist media producers in balancing screen time of different phenotypic groups. Our target domain is live telecast. We chose this domain since uh, it is a live and real-time environment where directors and producers have to make real-time decision without any scope for reverting or revising a decision. To inform our design, we conducted a field study in a commercial production studio. I'll present briefly about the full process of a live telecast here. So typically there is a stage which we see in our television. Consequently, there are several cameras capturing several different perspectives of the scene. These camera feeds are expected to have different distributions of screen time of featured actors and their phenotypic traits. These camera feeds are then fed into a computer, which is called controller. Audio is processed on a separate module and then fed into the compute controller. And controller passes the audio and the video to a interface, which is called switcher, which producers use to control the live telecast. And they use it to change the camera angles and select the appropriate one for broadcasting. And the full process happens in a separate room, which is called the control room. Note that even in a live telecast, there is a 7 to 10 seconds delay, which is indicated in the signal path to filter out offensive or unwanted contents. This delay is called broadcast delay. Based on the user's field study, we constructed 3 key guidelines. The first one is our interface should emulate switcher functions. Producers should be able to observe the camera feeds in the interface and interact with the feeds easily. Then we can use the broadcast delay to analyze the video frames before they actually reach to the switcher. In that way, we can present the extracted informations to the producers before they make the decisions of changing camera angles. Finally, our interface should use easy to understand visual representation of the information because the target user groups in this domain are not necessarily expert in advanced visualization. I'll now present a small demo of our tool. Similar to a switcher interface, the tool has a broadcast frame and several available camera angles. Each camera feed is accompanied by two bar charts. The bar chart shows distribution of gender and skin tone. The second chart shows how the selection of a feed affects the average screen time of the broadcast. User can change the broadcast frame by clicking on a camera angle. Implementation detail. As an initial effort in this domain, we used facial recognition and gender detection model, uh, which achieved, we curated our own test set with 3 different sample size in 1000, 2000, and 3000. The average accuracy was 87%. We also, for measuring fairness, we also calculated average accuracy for male and female characters, which were comparable. There have been a few works that outline the limitation of facial recognition and possibility of biased behavior of facial recognition. I'll discuss mitigation strategies around those concerns in the later part of the talk. For skin tone detection, we use the Celeb A dataset, which has been shown to have excellent demographic parity. As a level, we use light and dark as our skin tone level. This is based on a dermatologist approved skin type scale. We adopted an unsupervised method for detecting skin tone detection, which achieved an average accuracy of 89% for light skin tone and 91% for dark skin tone. For more details, feel free to refer to our paper. To measure the effectiveness of our tool, we conducted a user study with 20 participants. The participants were mostly YouTubers, video producers, and directors. The participants varied in age, gender, and skin tone. They were asked to control the switch of a 3 simulated live broadcast. On screen time, the results from our user study. So we found that the study revealed that using our tool, the participants were able to reduce the gap between male and female characters screen time most in comparison to baseline switcher interface. We found similar results for skin tone. We also found that our interface is easy to use and do not increase cognitive load on the users. A limitation and future work. As an initial effort here, we chose to use computer vision packages. There are some known concerns or limitation of the current AI systems, that they are limited to binary gender identity. They might be biased, even though we evaluated the fairness of our models. The analysis is not exhaustive, and we use skin tone as a proxy for race. Another limitation is our interface is designed for producers only. The actors are not included in the design process. So a potential solution which might be worth looking at is what we call self-identification process, where characters or actors would self-identify themselves before the start of a live telecast. And in that way, we could actors in the design space, we could get, the actors could give their consent for analyzing their images, and also we do not have to use any AI packages because the actors would self-identify themselves. Other limitations include possibility of increasing cognitive load in an intense live telecast. One solution would be to increase broadcast delay. Finally, we used only screen time to quantify state bias in live telecast. There might be other contextual factors such as pose, lighting, etc. to look at. In summary, we explored a new design space around live telecast. We hope that our study and findings might inform efforts in other similar domains such as movies and live streaming. I'd like to end my talk by thanking my co-authors from Penn State, MIT Media Lab, and Stony Brook University. This work was published in ACM-CSCW 2020. Thank you all. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Naimul. We have time for a couple questions. Okay, while people are thinking, let me start with one of the limitations that you mentioned, which is the cognitive load. And given the context of live telecasting, adding this new set of information would definitely add to people's cognitive load. And I'm wondering whether you are able to actually observe that during the usability session that you conducted, and how people reacted to that extra amount of information.
Yeah, so when we talk to people, so the live telecast producers, they work in a very intense environment, and what we found generally that they did not think the information is overwhelming because their mind is already trained to process a lot of information in a live environment. So that's one of the reason I think that they didn't think it's increasing their cognitive load because they are already trained in an intense environment.
Okay. Let's see. We have one comment from Discord. So lots of potential. I think this is the comment from Nicholas as well. Lots of potential for computer vision for good. Could automatically check the Bechdel score for movies, for example. I'm not familiar with Bechdel score, but it seems like there is such a score.
Yeah, so Bechdel test is a test that is a simple test that whether to test for gender bias in movies. Uh, the test looks for whether two female actors talk to between them for on a topic other than in any male characters. So if that happens in a movie, then that movie will pass the Bechdel test. So that's a popular test that is used to test gender bias in movies.
Okay, great, interesting. All right, thank you, Naimul, for your talk. And let's see, let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next speaker is Young-Hoo Kim. Young-Hoo is a postdoctoral researcher at the iSchool, and he will be presenting this work called Data at Hand, Fostering Visual Exploration of Personal Data on Smartphones, Leveraging Speech and Touch Interaction.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Young Kim, a postdoctoral associate at iSchool working with Dr. Kyoung Choe. Today, I will introduce our project recently presented at ACM CHI 2021. This work was done in collaboration with Bongshin at Microsoft Research, Arjun Srinivasan at Tableau, who was then at Georgia Tech, and Kyoung Choe at UMD School. Smartphone is a common place to view and access the self-tracking data. Even if we use fitness trackers or the smartwatches for capturing our activities, we browse the collected data using the accompanied smartphone app. Many mobile self-tracking apps incorporate data visualizations as they can effectively deliver comprehensive insights at a glance. However, smartphones have small screens. they can't display much information at once and don't have precise input methods, such as a mouse. For these reasons, visualization support in mobile health apps is limited. This made it challenging to explore personal data on a smartphone by comparing different time periods or navigating through the timeline. For example, most fitness apps, including Fitbit, Google Fit, and Apple Health, allow us to choose the scope size from only a given set. In addition, navigating to specific dates is surprisingly limited, often making us infinitely scroll. So in this work, we aim to facilitate flexible data exploration of personal data on smartphones through novel interaction techniques. Support flexible time manipulation, we incorporated natural language. Expressing time and ranges in natural language is flexible and expressive. And people already know diverse ways to express date and time. By catching the opportunities of natural language time expression in the context of self-tracking, we designed Data at Hand, a mobile app that leverages speech and touch for flexible exploration of personal data. Data at Hand allows people to explore fitness data from a Fitbit account. And people can use both touch and speech input modalities for navigating, making temporal comparisons, and executing data-driven queries. Touch and speech have different strengths in the smartphone context. Touch is usually precise and fast for pointing a screen element, and speech has powerful expressivity for time and long commands with multiple parameters. The novelty of this work is that it supports the combination of touch and speech in the context of self-tracking data on mobile devices. Let me show you a demo video.
I open Data at Hand, and it shows the past 7 days of my data. I will extend the scope. January 1st. Oh, crap! I see my step counts dramatically dropped since mid-March, the COVID-19 lockdown. Days I met my step goal. The highlighted days have gotten sparse since March. What about other activities? The sleep ranges also dropped since March similarly. I will take a detailed look at it. First, I will check my recent sleep patterns. Sleep range of this month. Days I woke up earlier than 7:30 a.m. Only 5 days? How terrible. Now I'm curious how my sleep differs from last year's. Compare with last August. The average sleep schedule of this month is shifted by an hour late, and the bedtime and wake time are more irregular this month. What about right before the lockdown? February 2020. Similar difference. Now I want to see the impact of the lockdown from the monthly trend. Show 2020 by month. I can see an upward trend since May. I'm going to bed earlier and waking up earlier. It's a good sign. What about other activities?
Can people actually learn and leverage such a novel concept of multimodal interaction in exploring their data? In the past, multimodal interactions were usually applied in visual analytics systems for data experts. But with Data at Hand, we aim to invite people who are not necessarily a data expert. We conducted an exploratory Think Aloud study with 13 long-term Fitbit users across the US. Participants freely explored their Fitbit data using Data at Hand for about 20 minutes. From the study, we learned that participants actively used all three interaction interaction types to perform various actions. Among all operations participants performed, around a half of the operations included the speech modality. Participants strategically chose the modalities in different cases. Using speech was generally received to be a fast and intuitive way, and they actively used speech for switching time periods and executing long and complicated commands, such as compare step counts of this month with the last month, which specified 3 parameters at once. Participants combined touch with speech when they fine-tune the parameters on the screen. For example, while comparing 2 periods, they modified 1 period by combining touch and speech. 70% of speech-based commands involved time manipulation, such as temporal comparisons and data-driven queries. These results implied that the speech-based time manipulation was a powerful facilitator of the data exploration. As long-term data users, our participants expressed excitement of viewing their data using data and novel features. They like speech features and convenient comparisons and querying enabled by multimodal interaction. Now I'll share some discussion topics. Data tend showed an opportunity of speech-based time interaction in self-tracking context. Our system supported various expressions of specific time periods and US holidays, which is agnostic about the user's personal events. For example, if the system could recognize personal periods such as the school semester and vacation or other personal events, it could even more facilitate the time manipulation, as people don't have to mentally transform the events into the actual date ranges. Making use of other personal data sources such as calendars, emails, or social media could be some ways to refer to such personalized data and time in the future. Also, envisioning real-world usage, we have to think about the privacy issues. As data tend covers personal health data, the verbal queries for speech commands tend to contain health-related information. So people may feel awkward to say like, what day was I the heaviest last year in a crowded office surrounded by other people. So these kinds of privacy sensitivity may discourage the use of speech interaction in public settings, which called for further investigation. Let me summarize this work. With data at hand, we demonstrated that supporting flexible time manipulation can powerfully facilitate the visual exploration of personal data. Also, our participants could quickly learn and adopt multimodal interactions in exploring their data on smartphones. In closing, we invite the research community to engage in the multimodal interaction research for personal data visualization. For additional details, please refer to our paper. Refer to our website. And thank you for your time and listening to my talk.
Thank you, Yoho. We have a couple of questions on Discord. So I will start with Nicholas' question. So he is wondering about the implementation, whether data at hand runs on multiple phones or just Android or iPhone. Can you talk a bit more about the implementation details?
Yes, that's a good point. Data at hand is implemented using React Native, which means that it can run on both iPhone and Android. So our participants, there were 2 groups. There were iPhone users and there were Android users.
Okay. We have a question from Saurabh. Having a voice-first interface may add barrier to usage in his opinion. Should it be the primary way of interaction in such a use case?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I may have some interface. Yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, the discoverability problem is a major problem of the speech-based interface. So on data-10 interface, we allow the users to choose whichever modality they feel comfortable with. So for example, they could modify the time periods using some familiar calendar views by touching on, and or they could use speech by using some global speech button, or by long pressing on the specific element, and also to give the users some hints about the speech commands. We showed example phrases on the speech feedback panel, so that they can catch some example phrases they can use. So as data10 leverages a multimodal interaction where users pressed on a specific screen element to do some context-aware command, we could contextualize the example phrases. So, I hope this answered the question.
Okay, let's see. One question from Alexander. Is the speech recognition cloud-based or on the device? Does it work on device?
Yeah, that's also a good point. I may have a slide about the natural language understanding part. Oops. Yeah, so this one, yeah. So considering the mobile scenario, all the natural language understanding was done on device without any server or network. The only network we used was maybe for the speech to text part, where we used built-in Siri recognizer on iOS and Microsoft Speech Cognitive Speech API for Android. But all the natural language understanding part was done on JavaScript layer using POS taggers and time parsing libraries. I hope this answers some of the questions.
Thank you, Young-Ho. Let's thank the speaker, and we should move on to the last talk by Yuhan. So her talk is FoodScrap, promoting rich data capture and reflective food journaling through speech and film.
Muted. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Yuhan. I'm currently a PhD candidate at UMD's iSchool, and today I'll be presenting this work, FoodScrap, promoting rich data capture and reflective food journaling through speech input. This work is in collaboration with Naimul Hoque, and Dr. Naeemul Hassan, Dr. In-country from iSchool, and Dr. Bongshin from Microsoft Research. So food journaling is not something new in these days. It has become a prevalent approach to help people collect their food information and make more informed food decisions. And there are multiple ways to practice food journaling. For example, we can use text-based search, barcode scanning, and taking photos. Additionally, researchers have made a great effort in developing automated systems to capture our eating episodes, such as using proximity sensor and microphone. While this approach is mainly focusing on capturing food items, calories, and nutrients, food journaling is more than that. Informal dietary assessment, details such as condiments and preparation methods are important information for nutritionists to assess patients' food intake. Researchers also find that capturing eating context such as time, social environment, and feelings about food can promote reflection on one's eating behavior. In food science research, Understanding how people make food decisions is important for developing personalized diet and promote mindful eating. To gather how people make food decisions, food science researchers open employee surveys or interviews relying on people's retrospective memory. So if we can capture this important information in a more efficient manner, the rich data set would be extremely promising for future research. But how can we do that? Using automated approaches such as sensors, photos, it is difficult to capture all the necessary details. But manual typing approaches such as text-based typing requires too much input burden. So how about using speech input? This idea is partly motivated by the growing uptake of speech interaction in our daily life. It has shown that 1 in 5 US adults have used a speech-based search on their mobile device, and nearly half of the Americans use a digital voice assistant. More importantly, we see the potential of speech input for facilitating data capture in 2 aspects. First, we speak faster than typing. By capturing the same amount of information faster, speech input can lower the data capture burden. Second, people tend to be expressive when they talk, so that speech can help collect rich details that might otherwise be overlooked with manual typing. But speech input is not perfect. It is difficult to edit the data on the fly and often comes with privacy concerns. Although theoretically, we know the pros and cons of speech input, little research has examined how speech can be helpful or can help people collect their data in self-tracking contexts, especially for unstructured personal data such as food practice. So in this research, we're interested in answering the question, how can speech support collecting food practice regarding data richness and data capture burden? This research leverages Omnitrack Research, an open source research platform, and we use Omnitrack Research to create FoodScrap, a speech-enabled food journaling app that captures everyday food practice. The app first asks people to log their meal type, eating duration, and a food photo so that they can remember to log other details after eating. Drawing from previous food science literature, we designed a set of guided prompts to uncover the food details and multifaceted food decision-making in audio recordings. The prompts ask people to describe their food components, preparation method, and food decision regarding why they eat at a certain time, why they choose specific food, when they made the decisions of food choice, and why they eat certain amounts of food. With FoodScrap, we conducted a 1-week remote data collection study with 11 participants. Our participants are from diverse food cultures and had different eating goals such as losing weight, reducing sugar intake, and developing mindful eating habits. We measured participants' perceived data capture burden in a post-study survey and did debriefing interviews to understand their overall experience. Here I'm covering some interesting findings from the study. If you're interested in knowing more, please refer to our upcoming DIS paper. So throughout 7 days, we collected 275 journal entries, including 200 main meals, 47 snacks, and 28 skipped meals. On average, participants spend more than 2 minutes describing their main meals and snacks, and less than 1 minute describing their skipped meals. This is because for skipped meals, they did not need to answer all the questions as for main meals and snacks. In addition, each main meal and snack entry included over 140 words. Our participants provided rich details regarding food components such as dish names, ingredient types, items, spice and sauce, and exaggerate. They also describe the preparation methods such as whether it's homemade from restaurant, prepackaged, or other additional detailed preparation procedures. Occasionally, participants mention about other contextual information such as the weather and taste of food. For example, in this transcribed entry from P8, she mentioned the dish name, the focaccia bread of her breakfast, together with all the detailed ingredients that she used to make it. And then she also mentioned the spice and sauce such as olive oil, ranch dressing, and grapefruit juice. In addition, she talked about the preparation type and additional context about her baking experience during COVID. As for food decisions, we find that 74% of the response were elaborated beyond what we asked with additional explanations and examples, often by describing the eating moments, explaining the eating strategy, and self-assessment. For example, in this entry from P4, answering why she ate that snack, she described the eating moment regarding her food access by saying that they were lying in front of me and calling my name. In another example, P7 made some judgment on his previous meals saying that they were junk food and decided to seek something healthier with fresh veggies, which kind of reflected his eating strategy regarding health belief. Now I'm moving to the findings from the post-study survey and interviews. So regarding the data capture burden, the results from the user burden scale showed that the data capture burden was relatively low, and our participants also acknowledged this during the interview, saying that speech input was easy and fast. For example, P7 highlighted that if he were to type the exact same information using text, he would barely manage one sentence or two. However, our participants brought up several limitations of speech input, including re-recording effort, which happened when they lost their train of thoughts while speaking and had to start over the entire recording. They also mentioned about that speech input sometimes consumed actual mental load because there's no real-time feedback and they have to be more concentrated on what they talk. Another limitation is related to the social environment, such as some participants felt like embarrassing talking in front of others, or the environment was not appropriate for audio recording. Lastly, privacy concerns were brought up because most of our participants believe that voice is more identifiable than text. Unexpectedly, although we deployed FoodScrap mainly as a data collection tool, participants recognized that FoodScrap encouraged their situated reflection during the moment of data capture. For example, even though it's purely recording without additional feedback, P10 felt like talking to someone so that she was more accountable to explain and think about her food decisions seriously. In another case, P9 even sort of stopped eating while thinking aloud her food decisions. Now I'll briefly talk about some implications for future work. To fully leverage the large amounts of speech data that we collected, we should consider how to effectively process and present the data for healthcare providers so that they can better leverage the information. For example, the data can be useful for dietary assessment if we can extract the different food details such as portion, condiment, and preparation method, and support customized filtering and sorting based on providers' information needs. To fully support a reflective food journaling experience, we should provide feedback on people's past eating episodes to enable reflection on action. For example, we can present the key factors influencing one's food decisions, either in text summarization or visualization, such as word cloud. Given that some of our participants did listen to their recorded audios, another opportunity would be enabling more efficient audio searching. Additionally, to complement the limitations of speech input, we can leverage multiple input combining speech, text, and photo across multiple devices so that people can choose when to use which input modality for what type of data. For example, in public space, they may choose text input on smartphone, and in the home environment, when the smartphone is not always available, they can use speech input on a smart speaker or wearable device with its hands-free interaction. With that, I would like to end the presentation and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yuhan. We have a question from the Hugh. For the speech input, is it a speech to text process or just an audio recording?
Oh yeah, so sorry for not clarifying this. So in this study, we didn't provide any feedback, including real-time transcription. It's just purely recording. The reason is that we are trying to look into the data collection part, not the feedback part yet. If we're applying some additional feedback, we'll have to be very careful about the accuracy so that we don't want to distract the people during the process of recording. Also, when they are answering questions such as food decisions, it can be very long response. And in that case, some people, they don't really want to look at what they are trying to say. This actually learned from a previous study with co-designing with dietitians. They brought up this opportunity that people may prefer using speech recording because they don't have to say what they don't have this visual feedback on what they are saying, so that they can encourage people to record more frank thoughts for reflection purpose. Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this one last question. What is the next step?
Sure. So I think there are like multiple opportunities, like I just mentioned in the implication part. I think what we're trying to working on is to supporting like more integrated multimodal self-tracking experience instead of only giving this option of speech recording. And obviously for the food part, and we can leverage text and maybe photos. And for other type of data, because obviously our speech input has this promising to help us collect information faster and more expressively. So I hope to apply this technique to like more broad self-tracking context, not just limited in food. So something like exercise or any type of data that people can customize. So incorporate like more type of data in different domains, in different modalities, an obvious next step. And the other research opportunity that more closely tied to these findings is that we can do a deeper processing of the data that we collected. For example, there are a lot of details that people mentioned during the moment of describing their food components and preparation method. Those are exactly the information that were asked in many food assessment protocols, such as food frequency questionnaire and food history assessment. And those information are very important for professional dietitians and nutritionists to assess patients' food intake. So if we can do like more automated processing based on diverse information needs, for both healthcare providers and individuals, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yuhan. So this concludes the third session on social media, visual analytics, and health. Thank you again for the speakers and the audience. And in the afternoon session, there are also 4 other interesting parallel sessions. So I hope that you check out and enjoy the rest of the symposium.